Добрый день.
Good afternoon. I suggest that we start. I will ask you to switch off the sound of your cell phones to make sure no one is disturbed by the buzz. Today, we are going to focus on an interesting topic. Who is the hero of our time? We can speak about this for a long time, and that's quite an interesting topic, and the choice was quite deliberate. We didn't want to feel constrained by the limitations of this topic, so we are going to have a fairly freewheeling discussion. For starters, I would like to introduce our panelists, your interlocutors, if you will. From right to the left, Svetlana Kozinova. She is a fashion designer, will hopefully say a few words about the project she's been running. Mr. Alexei Moshkin, Paralympic champion, many times champion of Paralympic Games, a world champion, something we will also discuss. Mitya Alishkovsky, project Things Like This, and a celebrity of sorts, very well known in the mass media. Alexander F. Sklar, a musician, as brief as I can. All of you know him probably. Mr. Sergei Shurgunov, writer, journalist, and a State Duma deputy. As I remember, you belong to the Communist Party faction in the Duma, but you do not a member of the party. So the last one, Mr. Pyotr Kamensk, leading researcher of the biological department of the Moscow State University, named after Lomonosov, has a doctorate degree in biology, and quite recently has been given the title of professor, almost a professor. My name is Sergei Yakovlev. I'm chief publisher of the Kommersant Publishing House. I'm going to moderate today's discussion, trying not to interfere with our panelists' presentations or interventions. For starters, we decided to hold some sort of to use Michel Proust's questions. We will pick some of his questions. Some of Marcel Proust's questions. The question I'm going to ask all of them. Your favorite character, your favorite literature character. When I was asked this question today, I couldn't identify my favorite one, but today, here and now, this is Raskolnikov from Dostoevsky. Rodion Raskolnikov. And why is that, may I ask? With an axe and a granny, he had his own ways of solving problems. I'm not trying to justify his actions, but indeed, this is quite a popular image these days. Young people solve their problems using some radical measures. Well, radical indeed. That's a character who tried to address his pecuniary problems, but ended up having lots of psychological problems. Alexei, who is your favorite literature character? There are quite a few of them. This is related to my trauma and desire to will. Alexei Maresiev. This is an almost autobiographical novel, as you remember, written by Polivoy. Polivoy. He has been one of my favorite literary characters. I've been thinking about this question for a while now, and my favorite literary character, well, I can't say that this is a favorite one. I can't speak about loving him, actually. I just feel a lot of respect for that person, for that character. And he's not from literature. Similar to Alexei's choice, my choice is someone from real life, Varlam Shalamov. I think he's one of the most important, if not the most important, writers of the 20th century, a person who lived through the heaviest sufferings and wasn't broken down, and who didn't lose his trust in people and love of people. I think he's one of the best literary characters. Most of his works are autobiographical, so he is both the author and the character at the same time. Let me give you three options. I will be brief. The first one is Captain Ahab from Melville's novel Moby Dick. The second one, Greg Zorba from Nikos Kazantzakis' Zorgan Greek. And the third one is Piotr Oleszkowski's character, The Fortress, and the character from this novel, Scientist. Sergei? As we are allowed to give several options, I would like to recall Captain's Daughter, written by Pushkin, where conscience is very important, and maybe Pyotr Grinyov, quite a noble character, but at the same time someone who found himself between Scylla and Charybdis, between the state and a revolt. One can think of Soviet heroic works, Vanya Sontsev from The Son of the Regiment, written by Kataev, and modern literature can give us interesting examples of interesting literary characters that are very reflecting, but still are very interesting. Andrei Rubanov's novel Patriot will be an example of this. Let me identify Professor Preobrazhensky from The Dog's Heart by Bulgakov, with his favorite line, as soon as everyone starts attending to their own business, we will overcome all the problems. And I would like to also call such a writer as Alexei Ivanov. He's written quite a few books. His characters are always interesting. I simply adore them for you can't always say whether they're good or bad. It's like real people in real life. Now let's go backwards. We've heard two answers, as a matter of fact, because literary characters coincided with real people from real life. I'm referring to Miresev and Shalamov. I also have another answer apart from Varlam Shalamov. But anyways, we will start with Pyotr, going backwards. Heroes from the real life, non-fictional characters. Who would these people be? That's a more difficult question, I think. I can't identify a person. I may have been quite lucky in my life that I have met a number of great people who I genuinely consider to be heroes of our time. And I believe that a hero in real life is a person who is not afraid to continue improving him or herself, and secondly, who can and who wants to do something for others, sometimes at the expense of his own interests. I know that for most people in the audience, heroes are those who participate in combat, in military action, and that's easy to understand. And I would like to speak about those who are doing very important things without being visible. I've just returned from Chelyabinsk, and I believe people, teachers from the 31st gymnasium are heroes. Doctors, teachers, engineers, officers, firemen in Moscow, for instance, who at his weekend rushed to the rescue of people and died. And we can give several examples of that. One person kept cleaning the runway year in, year out, for many years, and one day it came in handy and saved so many people when a plane making an emergency landing made use of the runway he cleaned. So these are the people I believe to be heroes. To follow up, I would like to fully agree with this idea that there is something irrational in every hero, and this include Zakhar Prilepin from my point of view, then our great sportsman Alexander Karelin, and my director of my school, school number 45, which I left, who brought up a generation of great people, Mr. Billy Grant, one of the first honored citizens of the city of Moscow. Dmitry, I would like to say who is really not a hero for me. In my view, people who do something, who are doing in everyday life something, who continue to do important things, are not heroes, and we have lowered the standards in describing who really a hero is. Look, he helped a dying granny. He's a hero. Really? Do you mean it? A person who simply didn't pass a dying by a dying person is a hero already? A person who is just not indifferent is a hero? No, I'm not ready to agree with this idea. A hero is someone who lost his or her life, who suffered for an idea, for some values, for something serious. But a person who simply does the right thing in everyday life, well, sometimes that can amount to heroism when combined with other aspects, but simply calling a person a volunteer, that would be too much of a good thing. Ideally, that's really so, but these times we should strive to reach the ideal. For a person to show his noble character, one should make an effort, and such people should become visible. We should be speaking about them for them to become role models. If no one is aware of such examples, if there are no role models like that, models of people who is trying to involve others into such efforts, if we fail to notice those people, those who are doing something really invisible to many, then all these efforts are worthless. You should save yourself and save the others. And what do we do to save ourselves? We should help others. Therefore, anyone who helps the close ones, his dear ones, is a hero. And in this sense, Lermontov, with his love of Byron and Shelley, was clearly aware that through the superhuman efforts, we renounce the negative sides of our being and are becoming noble. We are talking about the easiest things, the self-evident things. You keep saying that he is a hero. Well, let it be, but that's just a normal person. All of us should be like this. Then are all of us heroes then? Well, guys, let me interfere and add some oil to this fire. I paid attention to the fact when Sergei was answering the question about the heroes from real life, he gave a definition of a person who is doing something very often at the expense of his own interests. When I believe I tend to agree with Mitya Lishkovsky. If we do something for others, in real life, we are helping ourselves by helping others. And religious people, people believing in God, humbly believe that by helping others, they save themselves. Indeed, everyday attention to the needs of others, no matter what they are, should not be regarded as heroism. But whenever we do something, oftentimes at the expense of your own interest, to the detriment of your own interests, being irrational thus, then that's a hero. To conclude this line of our argument, we can now plunge ourselves in profound theological argument. There is too much negativity and consumerism, too much conformism in our lives, and overcoming this is a form of heroism, no matter what shapes it takes. On all flanks, that's heroism. Heroism can be small and invisible, but which should pay respect, give respect to those who does something for others. Alexei, as far as overcoming negativity in our lives is concerned, you know a lot about that, and I would like to invite you to say something about this. Do you consider these efforts to be heroism? Or is it just that's the way I think I should do? So I'm talking to the audience now. Alexei participated in 5 Olympic Games, and he brought medals from 3 of those. Lillehammer, he won gold. Salt Lake City brought him gold again. Lillehammer in Nagano, bronze medals. I can carry on. I'm sorry if I have mixed something up. Nagano, gold. Lillehammer, gold and bronze. Salt Lake City, bronze medal. And the number of world championships and other sports events that brought him victory is beyond 20, more than 20. And what shall we think of that? Was that just your personal decision? You decided that you should do it and you did that? Did you believe that you were a hero when you were doing that? Well, I don't think that's heroism. For starters, I took up sports. When I started sports, I wanted to become an Olympic champion. It turned out that I became a Paralympic champion, but it works well anyways. I will fully agree with what was said previously. I just want to add that one can be considered a hero not only if he does something at the expense of his own interest, to the detriment of his own interest, but does everything possible and impossible. When I did sports and made certain achievements, I did this for myself. I wanted to grow personally. I wanted to become an Olympic champion. But what is my example giving to others, to other people? This desire to live, to get up from bed, to do something. I'm very happy about that. And it doesn't matter to me what you call it.
Svetlana, as far as I know, your activities have to do with the fashion industry, designing clothes and so on. But at the same time, one of your projects is, as far as I know, you have 5 projects, active ones. There is one more project, one of them, that actually helps people. Could you tell us about this project, and do you really see anything heroic about this project of yours? So, yes, good afternoon once again. So I'm one of the organizers of the All Russia Inclusive Festival for Creative People. So what is the project about? It is about gathering different people with disabilities, which gives them an opportunity to give master classes to common people. So what is the point of this project? Our participants know that people are very different and they have different abilities. And even if the person is not very healthy, this person can have a bigger potential than a common person with no problems with health. And so this one of the activities of mine that could help, including people with disabilities in society, and it raises the awareness of others about the problems of such people. You know that I'm in a wheelchair. When 3 years and a half, when I gave birth to my child, I didn't want to explain to him that there was something wrong with me. So he knows that people can be in wheelchairs. He knows that he shouldn't ask unnecessary questions. And I have other acquaintances of mine who have followed suit, and we have created some space free of stereotypes, and this is some new normality that we should come to together. Thank you. What I want to say is that all our discussion is centered around some specific examples, case studies, something that really exists. We can speak about a specific heroic deed, or self-commitment, or charity, or anything else. So some of these terms are very specific, some of them are broader, sometimes it's broader to the extreme. Sergei has mentioned already that we can have some ideological dispute here because of the terms. But what it comes to, in some, is a very specific thing. We have a cliche in Russia, in Russian, a heroic deed, a feat. So usually it's some kind of decision that is instant, within parts of seconds. It can be some spontaneous act moved by the spirits, and usually it depends on the context, on the situation itself, and we tend to use very broad terms such as patriotisms, and that makes some people tired of such terms, but some others say that there is not enough patriotism. But what lies behind such terms? And I would like to speak today about the importance of minor acts, minor actions, and I have a question to Mitya. I would like to start with Mitya Alishkovsky, because he's running a project, things like these, and as far as I understand, part of this project is a charity foundation. No, actually it's the other way around. Okay, so I see. So first you have a foundation, then you have a project. And before our today's meeting, when we discussed this, I said that when the foundation started, it raised only 900,000 rubles in 2013. And in 2013, it was 130 million rubles. And this year, Mitya says it's going to be 200 million rubles raised from different people. So nobody understands how much it is, 200 million rubles. So, you know, I don't think that the results of our work should not be estimated in money, because the most important thing is that we have 89,000 patronized people all over Russia. So what's your question then? Sorry for interrupting you. Yes, back to my question. Speaking about this project, things like these, and speaking about minor actions. So do you think that minor actions have anything to do with anything heroic? You know, in general, I think that what is a minor action? That's when a person stops being indifferent. When the person starts helping somebody, at least, and paying attention to something, at least. So it's very human to try to change something. And in today's Russian reality, we don't have any other opportunities to change our life other than charity activities. And charity allows us to influence our life in this country. So can I mention the conversation that we had in the lobby? So Sergei, who is a State Duma deputy, comes up to me and says that he wants to establish a foundation. So on the one hand, he is a person with the fullness of authority in our country, but at the same time, he understands that in real life, the only way he can change our reality is to establish a foundation, so a charitable foundation. So, in other words, mine actions are normal. It's like cleaning your teeth every day. It's like taking a shower or going shopping or going outside in the street and take a bus. So it's natural and it's normal to change the world around you. Nobody is going to do it for you. We sit and wait that for somebody who will have to solve our problems. But I can still remember, like in 2013, my friends and I were in Blagoveshchensk, and we were trying to help those who had fallen victim to the flood. And the Amur River flooded thousands of houses there, and many thousands of people abandoned their homes, and they were injured and damaged in some way. So, but at the same time, for the last 20 years, those people had been living in an area vulnerable to floods, but they hadn't done anything before it happened to, for example, insure their houses. All those 2 decades, they had been sitting quietly and waiting for somebody to come and rescue them. So, you know, there is no question. You should just go and help people if you can. But the first people you should help are yourselves. Then you can help others. So we should solve our own problems, and paternalism is perhaps the greatest plague in this country. When we lived in the Soviet time, we delegated all our responsibility to the party, to the government, but they are gone. And we're living in a completely different reality, and we are masters of our own destiny. And we have lots of examples, millions of them, that we can really change reality and we can solve social problems, even those that seem to be impossible to solve. And there is some kind of classical example from the 1990s. 90% of children that were struck by leukemia died. And now 90% survive. And this is the achievement of Chulpan Khamatova, her personal achievement, and the foundation that she has created. She used to be just an actress. Now she's one of the heads of the foundation, and now she has huge connections, including those with Putin. And this is a very simple example. We can compare these 2 things: 90% of those who died and 90% of those who have survived. This is a world of difference. So that's the result of the activities of indifferent people who started solving their own problem. Is there anything heroic about this? No, nothing. So if you think there is something heroic about it, people will never start doing this, because they will think that this is just some kind of very challenging work, very hard and gritty. Sergei, could you add anything? Sergei says, you know, when I started being a State Duma deputy, I told myself that I had to. Now, every week on my Facebook, I will tell my subscribers what I have done in practice. So what I really need critically and significantly is the feedback from people, because people are alienated now. And what is important to me is not to be too influenced by this very ambiguous thing about the importance of minor actions. I would say that paternalism is not that bad a word, because the government needs to be the government and needs to protect its citizens, and you have to solve at the same time the questions that you can solve. just enjoying perhaps a little bit more support from others. So what we have to create a broader window of opportunities. So perhaps I could start with establishing a foundation. It is clear that you cannot reach out to everybody, but if there is some kind of specific problem of a specific person that can transform into a specific achievement, a specific victory, you should do something. It can happen every day. So here we have 4 regions, the Altai region, for example. There was a problem with a little girl who had to go to her school. That was, and the school is several kilometers far from her home. Or in some other regions, we can also have children that have to travel 7 kilometers, for example, from their home to their school every day. So, and that's a very practical thing. Can I add to what you have said? In the Kostroma region, do you know the story about the bridge? So the city is divided in 2 parts with no bridge in between. And so the ambulance car, no ambulance car, no firefighting cars can reach the other part of the city from the first one. And people just gathered together and decided to build a bridge, and they did it. So I have another story, Sergei says, of a woman who could not who could not place her child to a children's garden, a kindergarten, and I helped her. And so that's what I do in my everyday life. Sometimes you have to just solve the problems of specific people. And there are lots of such examples. Of course, sometimes we should not substitute the government, but we cannot change it all the time. And I'm really happy to see that from year to year there is the volunteer movement is growing. You know, there is a trendy word, hype and anti-hype. So he's trying to predict what I'm going to say. So we are mired in lots of very stupid and very senseless disputes and discussions. It's just hype. And when it comes to the anti-hype notion, then these are the so-called small people. Literary characters, for example. So, and they should prevail, I think. So we should support insignificant people, those who do not have good connections or they do not have any channels of information to translate themselves, transmit themselves to the world. Or we have released Yevgenia Chudnovets, who was imprisoned for posting something on the VKontakte network. So this is something that makes a difference. So am I right? Can you support me? So I would like to add something about our foundation. Now we have 30,000 people who donate to our foundation every month. Money is not a very heroic topic, of course. So heroism usually is not compatible with money. But people donate 100 or 200 and 300 or even more rubles, and these many tens of thousands, what they have really done, they have allowed 102 projects of ours to be implemented. You are speaking about specific people, about one household, one child, and so on, but what we have managed to do, we have created some systemic projects that allows us to solve the problem systemically. For example, now we are funding the Gorbachev Hospital. This is the biggest federal oncology center, which means that anybody of you and anybody of us can be a patient of this hospital someday. So they service about 70,000 people every year, and so we are funding them. So, in other words, this is a systemic solution. It's not, some kind of fitful activity when we try to stop the leakages in pipes every day. We are trying to actually fix and change the pipes themselves, because we are not trying to substitute the government. The government is us. So it's not the power it has, but we all are a part of this government. So the government is us. And when we start thinking about the government in these terms, when you understand that the government is actually us, then perhaps we will think about something different, how we can change it, how we can improve it, how we can make our lives better, and so on. So then everything will be changed. So we have heard some kind of apology to the insignificant person. The insignificant person is a typical character of Russian literature. And we can all remember the famous book by Gogol. So what you have said is interesting, because we are trying to discuss the so-called practice of minor actions. And I would like Piotr, as a representative of biology, this is perhaps a very interesting science that actually bridges our assumptions of the world with reality. So I think biologists are those who can give a very interesting answer to this question. Can we use anything from biology in social life? Yes, thank you very much. I would like to go back to the topic starting our discussion. And I would like to say that, from my perspective, minor actions do not run counter to heroism. To me, personally, heroism is some kind of self-overcoming. So, and you can overcome yourselves both in minor and major actions. And usually those who overcome themselves in major actions are more outstanding. You can see them very easily. But those who are trying to do the same thing but in minor actions are not so famous. They are not celebrities. Nobody knows about them. But actually, the latter ones are those who are the driving force for our society in development. So we need some everyday heroes, so to speak. I cannot speak about heroism in biological terms, because biology has no answer yet, but I can give you a practical example. Sorry, I'm used to speaking about specific things, and I think it will be of interest to you.
As a scientist, I do research, so my example will be scientific. Imagine a situation when there is a scientist, a researcher, engaged in researching worms. It doesn't matter what exactly he is doing research into. So he is supported in his research of earthworms, financial support, I'm referring to funding. And the way our system works in Russia is that he can use this funding in different ways. He can buy a super analyzer of earthworm and start analyzing it and arrive at certain results. Alternatively, he can go on an expedition somewhere to Kamchatka volcano and dig out some new earthworms that haven't been seen before with super qualities. For instance, they can swim in lava without getting burned. Or he can hire someone who could do this for him at a cheaper price, and he will get the margin. Or alternatively, he can do some theoretical research. He can go to the library, get dozens of books, and roughly speaking, can spend his funding on these theoretical activities, which will be of less practical value. Why am I talking about this? So I think there's also a place for heroism. Imagine you are this very scientist. You have a choice, which is quite legitimate. You can either use this funding to put it into your pocket, or alternatively, you can do something meaningful. But you need to raise yourself from the couch, go to Kamchatka, climb up the volcano, dig up those earthworms. Believe me, when a person faces such a choice and he chooses to go to Kamchatka, this is this heroic minor action we have been speaking about. What is heroic about it? That's difficult, you should understand that. As an ordinary individual, you have a choice of either keeping the money to yourself or going to Kamchatka. So it's very tempting to keep it to yourself, isn't it? Researchers don't do it very often indeed. Firstly. Secondly, imagine a situation that when you are a scholar, researcher, you have students around you, your postgraduate students, and you set an example for them. You show them what is the right thing to do, which is also important. And as in any case, there is something related to overcoming yourself. I consider this to be heroism, I can confess. I think this is where I should stop. I've been talking too long. Well, I think we've reached a very important threshold in our discussion. Now, heroism has two main categories or trends. The first one, in exceptional circumstances, this can be a spontaneous reaction to an emergency situation, who is in the right place at the right time, and objectively speaking, his action were the only possible in that particular situation, due to the circumstances. And the other type of heroism is what we've just mentioned, these minor everyday activities. This is existential choice. When a person makes this choice, Piotr says that he considers something heroism. Well, now I would like to ask Alexander the question. When you were 27 years old, is it so difficult to dramatically change your life? Your diplomatic career is behind you. GIMO, 5 years as in an embassy in the People's Republic, in the DPRK, and then nothing. Was that a challenge? Was that a well-thought-over decision, this existential choice I meant, to give up everything and start musing? And you have been in music since 1985 now. You've done a lot in music. You have lots of achievements. So was that difficult for you? Well, you know, of course. Looking back on those years, almost half of my life is behind me now, and trying with the benefit of hindsight to explain it in 2 or 3 words is next to impossible. Try to be a little bit more heroic. Well, back then I thought it was quite natural for me to do it that way. I felt that I was a musician. I felt that I have that vocation. I felt that I was occupying somebody's place. the place of somebody who would genuinely like to work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who would be genuinely interested in North Korea, and I clearly realized that I was in somebody else's place. Whereas I thought that I belonged to a different realm. I thought that my place was empty back then, and this is where I wanted to be, though I did not quite understand back then what it could bring me. I didn't know back then what it means to be a musician. I have just my enthusiasm. I have an understanding and conviction that I am interested. I feel that Russian rock and roll is emerging, and I have something that can contribute to it develop, and that's what I thought back then. Now, looking back on those years, I understand that it was madness. It was quite mad. But if I had a time machine, I think I would have done the same thing, as a matter of fact, because I believe when you are young, it's the right time for a person to clearly understand what you live for on this planet, what exactly you really want in this life. And as soon as you understand that, you start implementing Nietzsche's maxim of my understanding of happiness. My understanding of happiness, yes, no, direct line, straight line, goal. If you determine for yourself what is yes for you, what's your vocation, when you clearly give an answer to no, what you are not prepared to do in your life, then you will have this direct or straight line to your goal, and it will last as long as God has given you. That will be up to you, which should help you to reach that goal, and you should invest all your efforts in it. And you should clearly understand what you do, what you should do, and you should understand that whatever you do it not for yourself only. That's very important in any undertaking. This is something that what you do should be important for somebody else. That's what you should bear in mind. And this straight line that takes you to the final goal, I believe this will be your real happiness in your life. So I believe that one should determine what's the right thing to do, what's your vocation is. One should do it as soon as possible, and you should be very sincere with yourself, without trying to hide your genuine interests, without trying to seek more benefit, without trying to understand what can make you more socially important, without trying to identify a better position in society. This is crap. What is important is that this is really in line with your core interests, that it is genuinely in line with your real interests in life. This is what you should do as soon as possible. And then you should persevere trying to achieve your goal. And I also believe that one of the signs of heroism, especially in this country, in the Russian Federation, is the activity of those people who are people of long will, so to speak. People of long will may not be visible, may not be considered heroes, but when we speak about noble activities that are done by certain people throughout their entire lives, then one can say at the end of their lives that this was a real hero. Why did I call Mr. Milgram, the head of my school, to be a hero? He was a war veteran who was quite old when he started teaching, but he felt that this was the right thing for him to do, and he did this the whole life, and as a teacher with a capital T. This, in my view, he's no longer with us, he has passed away, but he lived a very long and I'm convinced happy life. From my point of view, this is one of the examples of a real human heroism. Now look, one more aspect, in continuation of what has been just said. Firstly, it's good if you are lucky enough, when you're young, to understand what you really want to do, what your real interests are, and what is really important for you. This is what Alexander has just said. And then this long will, so to speak, will help you to be and to pursue those goals throughout a long period of time. Be yourself. May I say, don't be afraid to change. I really respect what you have said, but look at Mr. Fomenko, for instance. Now he's about 60, but he keeps changing. Today he's a singer, tomorrow he's an anchorman, the next day he's a raceman. That's good. Dmitry, I do not fully agree with you. That's the point I'm trying to make. He's a little bit of a singer, a little bit of a racer, a little bit of an anchor person, a little bit of a showman. This is no one. That's not what I believe to be good. There is a hope that he would someday become complete, especially in some area at least. Well, this discussion can be endless indeed. Let's talk with the audience now. Do we have mics? Is there anyone willing to ask a question? Good afternoon. My name is Arseny. I'm from the Czech delegation. I would like to speak about one of the charity events we have been organizing, and then I would like to ask a question. The event is as follows: collecting things for orphanages. We all have something that we no longer need, but this can be used by other people. And I organize a booth, for instance, at the railway station. People bring their clothes, and these clothes will be taken to orphanages. We did something in the Czech Republic, and similar activities can be done here in Russia, because I believe that people should be motivated and should be made to do good things, because that's important. And now my question, may I give a comment? I'm doing charity on a professional basis. I visited the Czech Republic, but I don't know anything about the orphanages in your country. In Russia, this is something I would never recommend, anything like that in Russia. Will you be wearing the clothes of someone worn by someone else before you? You say no, but you offer this to orphans. But when we come to orphanages, people tell us that they need this. But you yourself answered that you are not going to wear something worn before you. Treat people in orphanages with respect, the way you would treat your own children. Secondly, in our country, orphanages no longer need money. They don't need to buy clothes. What they need is, what we need actually is no orphanages. Clothes will not address the problem orphans face in orphanages. They don't have families. This is what is more important than lack of clothing. There are countless organizations who professionally help orphanages. What we're talking about is something that should be made professional, because sometimes your help, your aid can harm. Any gift brought to an orphanage can develop in an orphan, brought up in an absolutely different environment, the desire to be a hanger-on. He's used to receiving presents, he's used to receiving gifts, he's used not to doing anything. So we shouldn't be bringing gifts and presents to orphanages. This is a very important thing to mention. Let me intervene as well. I want you to explain what you are doing. At a certain stage, Mitya and I went to Yaroslav. In the Yaroslav region, the issue of orphanages is very important to us, because orphans leaving those orphanages are becoming victim to con men. They're sometimes deprived of their apartments and things like that, because they just don't know how to behave. and they become homeless. That's a real drama to be addressed. And what we should do in Russia is to help people from orphanages to succeed in lives. And now my question, if I may. It's from an absolutely different area. I visit Russia every once in a while. I switch on Russian TV, listen to Russian music. Thank God it doesn't happen very often. But when I switch on Russian TV, there is lots of aggression and something that does not motivate people to do good things, including modern music. I feel a certain degree of degradation. From your point of view, what can you personally do to develop young people, to make sure that we take it to a different level, to elevate it to a different level, for TV stations to tell us about good things and motivation rather than murders? Let me address this. My foundation was set up to counter problems like that. I fully agree with you that today TV stations broadcast a flow of crap on viewers. There is no other word to describe that. But to do something to counter the situation and to switch people's attention to something that is really important, to orphanages, for instance, other social issues, we created a website of our own. You speak about aggression, but you should understand, it's not about aggression in culture or aggression in the media. That's not what is important. We shouldn't have aggression. Instead, we should have a serious discussion of serious social problems. Now, we do see that both in culture. Let's look at those battles that have become quite popular in Russia and are becoming the mainstream of modern culture. And in the media, let's take most popular Russian media, not the ones that buy information from Mail.ru portal, for instance, that are paid for from the state budget, but people that are really genuinely popular with people and who raise important questions. All these media are trying to tell people that there are real social problems out there. Some media come up with solutions, some not. But raising people's awareness is the most important step toward solving that problem. That's what we should do. We shouldn't be talking about good deeds. They do not stimulate anyone. We should tell the truth about what's going on around us. This is what motivates people. The people will open their eyes and they will be surprised to see what's really going on around them. Only then will they start doing something. Sergei? Mitya recalled rap battles, which is an interesting example from the Russian music. Oxymoron, no matter what you think of him, he's quite talented. He won his battle today, his battle against Disaster, his American counterpart. They spoke English, by the way, and I think that's cool and that's interesting indeed. I'm against demonizing everything. We shouldn't be truth. We shouldn't turn the word truth into a fetish. There are several different views on what's going on in the media. The interest towards media has increased. Back in 2014, that was quite understandable. We had a high level of patriotism. We have it. We closely link our own lives with the life of our motherland. We shouldn't take up this modern trend trying to vilify everything proposed by officials of this state. That's not what we should be talking about. What we lack is the sincerity link to different positions. We are lacking in culture. I would like our TV to show modern poets, for instance. Back in the Soviet times, before the news program Vremya or The Time, they recited poets of either a modern or a classical poet. People are interested in literature. They want to learn more about art and other people. And TV itself that it continues to attract people's attention, and YouTube is the environment that can attract ordinary people, and instead of some negativism, they can broadcast something interesting, stories from life.
But we are the ones who are responsible for this, and you can actually make yourself a YouTuber and make a channel there. So lots of things depend on us. and on our ability to change the world. We can also change the media that we don't like so much today. So there is a mic, and can you introduce yourself once again? So you have a wonderful project, and for the last half an hour, I've been witnessing the young men sitting here on the panel masturbating. I cannot find another word for that. We have projects like yours in Russia as well. So I understand that we are from different strata with those who are here on the panel, but I was a child that used to wear clothes that had been worn by someone else before. And I think that your activities are wonderful, and I support your project fully. So thank you. So, questions? Good afternoon. Good afternoon, speakers. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Aisha Gireva from Uralsk, and I would like to tell you about the project that we have in our TV channel. So we are a private TV channel, and thanks to Internews, that is a Kazakhstan broadcasting company, we are running a project that is aimed at motivating other people. For the last half a year, I have made 5 programs, but in general, we are part of a system consisting of 5 channels all over the country. So next year, we will have a continuation of this project, and we will tell our viewers about those who collect pre-used, pre-owned clothes, and try to give it to those who have fallen victim to different disasters, and they need these clothes. And we also contact different celebrities and media, newsmakers, who participate in such charity problems. But over the last years, I have faced a very interesting problem. Sometimes it's really hard to find a person who is engaged in these activities and who can become a character of our program. And I would like to appeal to all those present and say that now not all people watch TV or listen to the radio. The majority of people are on some social networks, and if you see that somebody is doing something well, we should create some positive publicity for this person. And usually people just don't have enough information where to turn to be engaged in charity projects. So we have to disseminate information about such people and projects on social networks and create some kind of word-of-mouth publicity. So can I put a question to Svetlana? So can you speak about your inclusive new collection? So for the last 6 years, I've been in a wheelchair, and the problem I faced was that there is no shop in Russia with a specialized department for people with disabilities. For example, people in a wheelchair, then there are some specific things. For example, you have to cover your bottom when you're in a wheelchair, because sometimes usual trousers cannot do that. And so from my personal experience and from my experience as a fashion designer, I came to a conclusion that we have to change the situation. And so I created a collection for women, then for men, and then for children. So this is now a 3-year project. I try to contact about 150 people with disabilities all over Russia, and they place an order, and according to this order, I create specialized clothes for them. I have a question to Dmitry. I'm a publisher, and now we are running a story of a girl who has been a person with disabilities since childhood, and now she's living in a multi-story building with stairways but without any elevator. And so it's in Yoshkar-Ola, the Republic of Mariel in Russia. So she lives with her mother, who is a retired personal resi, and she doesn't have any physical ability to help her daughter to go downstairs to the street. And so her main need is nothing financial, actually. She has she wants some communication. She has some virtual friends, of course, on social networks, and we try to visit her as guests. But through your portal, through your resource, things like this, can you help us in some way? This particular girl. So what disease does she have? She has a genetic disease, and so it's some spinal muscle atrophy. And we have a project helping people with such diseases in the regions. And just let's talk to each other, and I think that we can help her. So Alexander has said that he has acquaintances in Yoshkar-Ola. Perhaps we can also help her. But if you speak about socialization of hers, then, you know, it's a strange question to me, a person from Moscow sitting in Sochi, because this is some kind of local task. So, yes, we have some kind of movement in Yoshkar-Ola. This is a local movement, but you should understand that there are lots of such girls. There are lots of people with disabilities in wheelchairs. You can find them in every city, in every street. So, literally. And people who do not have a physical ability or opportunity to go on the street, this is a very huge problem for our country. We just don't see them because there are none of them in the streets. They don't have this opportunity. But answering your specific question, what I can do, let's speak to each other. I will give my phone number to you, and I will do everything I can. But what I really think is that this is some kind of local task for Yoshkar-Ola, because it's in your interest. Sometimes all of us can find ourselves in a wheelchair, and then we will find out that the urban infrastructure in our cities is not good enough for us. So that's exactly what I want to do. I would like to share some contacts. Yeah, so it's very easy. Just contact me right after this meeting. You see? This personal question can be solved in a very easy way. Svetlana, please. So, do you understand that Anna Chepaikina, so taking this opportunity, sitting right here, right now, I would like to urge those who in authority to help her, because for 5 years she has had no opportunity to get on the street. She can't, for example, change the place she lives in because of the legal restrictions from her father. So this is my personal appeal to everybody who can help. Please help. Can we sum up a little bit? Otherwise, we will never end. So what is the most typical and the most horrible thing about this. So the horrible thing should be rare, but unfortunately it's not. So Svetlana has just said, we can see some people here from the administration of the Russian president. So now you see the person has been in this situation for more than 5 years. You know the specific name of the person. So please try to understand what exactly should and can be done in this situation. So everything can be solved in some individual way. But when we understand that some single particular situation, horrible situation, is not actually so single, it's literally mass and very common in the country, then we see that there is no heroism in overcoming such everyday problems. It's just a matter of how much personal effort we can invest in solving such problems. So this particular case, I think, will be resolved, but we should not forget that there are thousands of other people in the same situation. So, and we should find some systemic solution. So we should find a systemic solution. If we speak about specifically about people who cannot leave their homes and get into the street, we should work out some urban construction plans envisaging some ramps, special ramps for such people. For example, I've been to Edinburgh, and this is a medieval city, as you know, but there are ramps for people with for people in wheelchairs all over the city. It's no problem at all to get into and from and out of medieval houses there. So it's not anything individual, actually. This is a systemic problem. There should be a community around such people, because this is not the problem of those in wheelchairs. This is our problem. For example, now it's my problem, a person living in Moscow, that a girl in Yoshkar-Ola has no opportunity to leave her home and to get into the street. When we finally start seeing these problems as our personal problems, then okay. We are running out of time. Let's sum up everything. Let's recapitulate everything we have said. So my name is Alina. I'm from Pskov, and I would like to get back to what Arseny has said. And so I would like to say, Google Daria Alexeyeva charity shop, and you will see how important collecting clothes is and how to collect clothes in the right way, because not every clothes can be given for charity, because you should give to charity organizations only good clothes. Here you're absolutely right, because charity is not a solution to you, it's a solution to somebody else. And in orphanages, for example, the major problem of children is, of course, that they don't have family, not clothes. Or just buy what a specific child in orphanage. And then I have a question to Dmitry. And I'm a journalist in my other capacity. We failed one time to collaborate with your resource, and we. Can you give me some details of the situation? So no, the situation is not so important. The important thing is that it's quite a common thing. When you, for example, So, do I understand you correctly that when, for example, for example, representatives from the authorities try to silence the media and ask them not to publish something, giving them a promise to solve the problem. But, you know, it's not a good exchange. It's not a good deal when the authorities promise to solve a particular problem for your silencing it. So the main thing is that charity is a system, and the main aim of charity is not to hurt people, not to do harm to people. So if we have an opportunity to influence somebody's fate, what we shouldn't do, we shouldn't do harm to these people. Silence is not a good decision, but at the same time, publicizing things that whose consequences you don't quite predict is also not a solution. We should be very cautious in everything we do. Okay, I think it's a very good recommendation to strike the right balance. So, for example, I've been employed by our publishing house for many years, and I understand very well how important it is to select different instruments in different situations, because it's not mathematics, it's about people. So, Sergei, perhaps you can say a couple of words. Sergei says, "What I want you to be, I want you to be responsive. Response is very important. The worst thing is silence, perhaps, especially of those who can help. You know that there are lots of people who can make a mountain out of a mouse hole, but there are others who are too shy and who are not very confident, and sometimes they choose to be silent rather than to make things public. So we have to identify such people, and as a State Duma deputy, I can ask you to contact me directly. I will be happy to help you. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you, everybody in this hall. I wish all of you to live in a world of that does not need spontaneous heroism, but at the same time, we should understand that minor actions can be a solution in certain situations. That's what we need to do all the time, without thinking too much and asking this question whether it's heroic or not. It's just some kind of routine, human routine. Thank you.